Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Well, today I want to talk about the question, are we at peak motorcycle? The peak idea being when you have different consumer products, they'll be phased out in favor of some newer technology or just due to a change in consumer preferences. And the reason I was thinking about this is that the motorcycles right now are just so fantastic. I mean, a variety of brands are offering full ranges of motorcycles, lots of technology, lots of power. I mean, you've got Kawasaki with their H2 supercharged motorcycle engine producing over 200 horsepower, and the bike is manageable because of the suite of electronics that are on it. You've got a Ducati V4 Street Fighter, again producing over 200 horsepower. It is also managed with a suite of electronics. It even has wings on it to keep the bike front end down at high speeds. The new Suzuki Hayabusa, loads of technology on this bike. Again, roughly 200 horsepower. It is a fantastic bike. But sometimes you really don't know if you're at the peak until you look back in time. Maybe I'm prone to thinking about things in the future because I read so much science fiction when I was a kid. But to paraphrase the song by Sonny Boy Williamson, Fattening Frog for Snakes, where he ponders at what point his downfall occurred in the past, you really don't know necessarily that you're at a peak of something until you look back in time, and it doesn't become apparent until after the fact. I mean, who would have thought even a few years ago that you could have street production automobiles with 700 horsepower plus engines? I mean, it just boggles the mind. Years ago, you'd have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in performance upgrades to get a car doing something like that. And you might run into some legal complications trying to run a car like that on the street. But, you know, the guy running Dodge says that the days of that type of performance from an internal combustion engine vehicle are numbered. I mean, probably just in a handful of years. You have people who like to drive manual transmissions for performance reasons, or because they're very budget conscious, are having a harder time finding a vehicle with a manual transmission. So there's a lot of pressures from changes in the industries that affect motorcycling that is likely to bring about a peak in motorcycling as we know it. That is, the current configuration of motorcycles that aren't insulating the rider too much from the riding experience, whether it's through electronics or other equipment that's mandated by government agencies. I mean, you've got Cadillac announcing that in a few years they're going to move away altogether from internal combustion engines in favor of electrics. You've got governmental agencies that have planned to phase out internal combustion engines by, say, 2035. You have Shell Oil as an example saying that they reached peak oil production in 2019. So you have these headwinds pushing away from internal combustion engine vehicles, and it's affecting a number of industries. I've shown this slide in a number of my previous videos because it's just very interesting to me. In 2020, Harley-Davidson announced that they shipped 145,000 motorcycles worldwide. That's on par with their production going back to 1997. So, you know, Harley-Davidson is reflective of the industry overall. There's just not that many motorcycles being sold as in the past. But there's also a change in technology that's going to result in the motorcycles that are being sold having a different rider experience, whether it's because of the electronic packages, the engine configuration, whether it's going to be an electric motorcycle versus a bike with internal combustion engine. I mean, let's just take a different example for a consumer product, vinyl records. You can see from this chart that the sale of vinyl records peaked in the late 70s, and they dropped off precipitously throughout the 80s with the advent of CD format music. Now, I remember I listened to a lot of music on vinyl records, and a lot of friends of mine did too, and some of my friends were really into quality audio gear. I mean, they would would spend hundreds of dollars, probably equivalent of over $1,000 today, on a high-end stylus. And they had a really nice turntable, and they would clean their records so you wouldn't hear a bunch of popping and things like that. So for people that were really into audio, they much preferred the warmer sound of a vinyl record as opposed to the digital format from a music CD. But like it or not, that's how the industry moved. Sort of reminds me of, say, electric motorcycle. It's a different experience. It's direct drive. There's no clutch. There's no changing gears. You don't feel vibration. You don't hear much noise. It's a different aesthetic. It's a different experience. Interestingly, with the record example, vinyl's making a comeback for a variety of reasons, but I think a number of people have come to realize that they missed the experience that only a vinyl record could provide while listening to their music. So could it be that we're going to go from internal combustion engines to electrics back to some niche of internal combustion motorcycles being sold new in a few years? It's interesting to me to think about that. But again, there's a lot of pressure on the motorcycling in general. I mean, you're talking about some jurisdictions openly discussing banning motorcycles from their roadway. And then there's the whole issue of automation. I mean, what happens when most of the vehicles on the road are cars or trucks and they're fully automated? And you have somebody who is in a vehicle that's not automated, say a motorcycle. I mean, first of all, who would want to ride a motorcycle that had autonomous driving? I wouldn't. So there's no point. So if you're an enthusiast and you want to drive a sports car or you want to ride a motorcycle, what's going to happen when that type of person's incompatible with the majority of vehicles on the road? It's a fair question to wonder, is the government going to ban such activity? I mean, autonomous trucking is coming. In fact, there were a number of tests conducted in Arizona, and people didn't find out till afterwards that you had autonomous trucks on the roadway. I recently took a trip to Dallas in the family vehicle, and I set the cruise control, and either I had forgotten or I just never used this feature, but it was adaptive cruise control. And as I approached other vehicles, the car automatically started slowing down. Well, there was a guy on a Harley at one point directly in front of me, and the vehicle didn't brake with the adaptive cruise on. It didn't sense the guy. Now, I didn't get exactly right up on his bumper. So what we know is that these automated systems have not been optimized for pedestrians, bicyclists, or motorcyclists. And if the industry as a whole moves that direction, say if you're a big fan of vinyl records and the industry moves to CDs, you're just out of luck. And another thing that concerns me about this is the lack of transparency that you see from federal agencies right now with the use of automated vehicle driving technology. Where I live, we experienced a loud sonic boom. At first I thought it was a blast from a construction site, and then it was the local police issued a report saying they didn't know what it was. Well, some people put two and two together that we were adjacent to this supersonic FAA test corridor. And so it was obviously a sonic boom. And the government was doing something in that corridor. And it could have been a military aircraft. I don't know. But it's just something the government was up to and chose not to clue the population in on, even though the population had directly observed something that was concerning. And I see parallels with automated vehicles. It's coming. The government may or may not have a plan of how this is fully implemented. I think they're letting the manufacturers run with it for the most part. But ultimately, if motorcycling becomes incompatible with the vast majority of automated vehicles on the roadway, I think you can decide how that's likely to go relative to the motorcycling interests. So I say this not as a sense of doom and gloom, but as a call to arms to embrace the multitude of wonderful motorcycles with internal combustion engines and the ability to freely ride such motorcycles throughout the United States and whatever country you're living in right now, until or if it changes in the future. And some type of change is inevitable. So I just think about this as a lot of these changes are likely to happen. I'm going to appreciate what I have and enjoy it while I can. But I don't know, I'd be interested in your comments. Have you thought about how automated self-driving vehicles would affect your ability to ride a motorcycle in the future? Do you think electrics are going to replace internal combustion engines for motorcycles? If it does, many of you might say, so what? That's the future. Let's embrace it. Others might say, yeah, it's just going to be different. It's not the normal riding experience I'm accustomed to, but I'll just roll with it. Others may think, hey, by the time that happens, I'm out. I don't want to go to an electric motorcycle. I don't want to mess with it. It's a different aesthetic. It's not the type of experience I've grown accustomed to. You know, I wear a mechanical watch. There's some people that wear an Apple Watch. An Apple Watch has way more capabilities than my mechanical watch. My mechanical watch tells the time. And I can do a thing with the hands on a bright, sunny day to kind of figure out where north is. That's it. You've got an Apple Watch, you can do way more things with it than that. So is one better than the other? No, it depends on what your interests are, what your preferences are. So I see a similar idea with bikes with internal combustion engines and minimal electronics versus something really high-tech electric with lots of electronic packages and lots of capabilities that are different than a conventional motorcycle. So thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for future videos, and again, I appreciate your comments. Thanks very much.